Hi, everyone, and thank you for listening to Let's Talk ETC. I'm your host, Carlo V, along with my co-host, Dr. Christian Severino. Again, I'd like to thank all the ETC devs, investors, miners, and other community members for another excellent week. I usually don't talk about markets too much, but the crypto markets have been insane the last couple of weeks. So I just had to touch upon that. And, I know anyone out there who's into crypto has just been riding this nuts roller coaster for I don't know how long. When's it going to end? Who knows? But it's definitely a fun ride. Another thing that I wanted to talk to everybody about, there's an ETC poll going on right now, which we'll put in the description if you're listening on YouTube. Right now, ETC is ahead. I'm going to check this out. I think looks like we're ahead by quite a few percentage points against some of the other cryptos. So if you could click that link and give ETC a vote, that would be pretty awesome. Now I'm going to move on to the main focus of the show tonight, and it's on a platform that's been deployed on the ETC network called ETC Bets. We have a really great guest with us tonight. He's known in the crypto community for quite a long time. Special guest Rob, aka Lobos. Rob, what's going on? Thanks so much for being on. Thanks for joining the show.
Hey guys, how are you? Glad to be here.
Hello.
Yeah, absolutely.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, Rob, something we like to do typically on the show is a lot of the people out there, they're interested in ETC, they're interested in the community, they're interested in the chain and the platform, but they don't necessarily know the people behind the scenes that are working on different aspects of the project. So we just like to bring everybody on here, at least for their first time on, and just kind of give a quick intro for how they got into tech, how they got into crypto and stuff like that. So why don't you tell everybody that's listening a little bit about your background and stuff like that?
Sure thing. Yeah, I'm one of the, lucky people who sort of found programming to be their calling. I first started programming at this point 35 years ago.
Wow.
When I laid my hands on, I had a little toy computer, like a Sinclair ZX Spectrum. And then in high school, I got to bang on an Apple II, and it was really, really obvious to me very quickly that this was really interesting, and I was good at it. And it spent a few years in high school writing basic code and stuff like this, and then Pascal, and then went on to study computer science at Carnegie Mellon University. And been a developer ever since, basically. I worked for a research lab for IBM, and then that didn't last too long because this was at the time that IBM lost billions of dollars a quarter.
Oh no!
Yeah, this was 1990, 91, 92.
You were trying to save them, but it wasn't working.
At that point, I wasn't ready to save anything really. I mean, you graduate from college, and you learn a lot of stuff at college, and you sort of think, oh, I know it all, and then you start getting a real job, and you realize you really know close to nothing.
Yes.
So it takes a few years from there to really know what you're doing. And then I got a job at Oracle at the European Oracle porting group, which was porting its database and tool suite onto various European Unix platforms. And at that job, I learned a lot of large scale development skills. This was in 93, 94, 95. And back then, the Oracle source code was 2 gigabytes of code, which now doesn't sound so scary, but back in 92, that was an insane amount of code. And we'd spend 3-4 weeks compiling code for each release, and then the first time you tried to start it up, of course nothing worked. And then
Wow.
you launched debuggers and stuff like that, and eventually got it to work. But so that was really good. That was a really good experience in terms of doing large scale development. C pointers to pointers to pointers to pointers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that was really good. And then I went on to work for a few other companies. And in 2000, I went to work for a web startup from California called Blue Martini, which no longer exists in its original form, but back then was actually a really sort of, you know, up and coming company until the dot-com crash. But that sort of got me into web development, and that was on sort of, they had sort of enterprise type customers. So you're thinking about Harley Davidson, AT&T, things like that, right? And I was in Europe, so in Europe it was like Schiphol, like the Dutch airport, Lufthansa, their web store for like their miles program, stuff like that.
Major stuff.
Yeah.
Major stuff, big stuff, multi-million-dollar implementations. Big teams. The biggest team I ever worked with was probably 70 or 80 people in Japan.
Jeez.
For the Panasonic holding company. And again, good experience, good stuff, and that was all in Java. And
now I was going to say, now the $29 billion question. How did what was your crypto rabbit hole?
Wait, stop. Wait, I got to ask you one question. So, Robert, small world, I'm going to teach a class on blockchains to Oracle Europe at the beginning of next week.
That's true. That's true.
So
tell me about that.
That's interesting that you used to work for them. They're salespeople.
Go
ahead.
Where in Europe? In the Netherlands or in the UK?
UK. So their salespeople kept getting asked about blockchains, and so they figured they better do a class to learn what all this fuss is about, so they could answer queries.
Well, Oracle is an interesting company in the sense that they have like their own sort of software universe, right?
Yeah.
They're so big and have so many products, and now of course they own Java and MySQL and everything. That, I mean, I have colleagues from 20 years ago who still work at Oracle, right? And who've done various roles at Oracle. Every once in a while I still talk to them. And they're really in their own universe. It's a really interesting company from that point of view. It's also an interesting company from other perspectives. And of course they have Oracle database, which is expensive and not easy to maintain, but it does what it does really well. And if you have the money for it, then it's for certain types of applications, it's great, right?
Yeah. And I got to ask you one more question. So when you said that you programmed in C with pointers to pointers to pointers and so on, that was music to my ears. That reminds me of the good old days. And but the question I wanted to ask you, since you said you use BASIC, and I'm going to be dating myself, but did you ever use the go-to command?
Of course.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Of course.
Spaghetti code, right? Jumps all over the place. Yeah.
Oh, you had to. There was no other way of doing things.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was the nice thing about programming back then was, right? Software was really simple.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, real software was written in like, machine code or assembly or something.
Mm-hmm.
But, you could learn enough in half a year or a year to write, reasonable software,
mm-hmm.
right? And to write software that was comparable to a professional product,
What was I doing back then? I think I was walking around now. I was in a stroller, probably. I might not have even been thought of.
Yeah, I mean, you were programming. You had 48K of RAM, and you were like, "Whoa, this is great! I have a huge machine." Right? Of course, it's laughable now, but back then, that's what we dealt with, right?
Yeah.
And then you got into these silly situations where if your program got too big and you started the graphics mode would go into RAM and overwrite part of your program and stuff like that. So you have to swap things out to disk and load them back in and stuff like that. I mean, really stupid stuff, but it teaches you a certain sort of, I guess, I mean, the computers we use these days are absolutely amazing, right? And the people who grow up with them have I think, often not much of a sense of perspective, where things came from. So.
Nope, no idea. But no, I do appreciate computers and how far they've come. I always refer to, like, there's a funny Louis C.K. skit where he talks about someone complaining about their flight, and then he talks about how they have to realize it's such a miracle that they're even traveling this distance in such a fast period of time, where if they did it like 150 or 200 years ago, it would take them like 3 months, and there would be different people by the end of the trip or something.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, but even that works for lots of things, right? I mean, if you drive a couple of 100 kilometers or miles in one day, that's normal. 150 years ago, that was a 2-week trip, right? So yeah, I mean, we live in amazing times, and we just don't think about it a lot because that's what we do every day, right? But it's sometimes good to step back and consider the advances which we use every day.
Very
I speaking of travel and how amazing it is. I was in Dubai. I live in Houston, and I went there, taught a blockchain class for 2 days, and then came back. So that's just kind of odd that you go halfway around the world to teach a class, 2 days, hello, goodbye, and you come back. But the one thing, Robert, that they haven't invented yet is how to fix the jet lag. They could get you there fast, but the jet lag, oh my God, that was annoying, unbearable.
Tell me about it. When I used to work for sort of the startup from California, I probably flew out over the course of I don't know, 3 years. Probably flew out like 20 or 30 times to San Francisco, and every time was just the first 2-3 days were brutal because you were just on a totally different internal schedule. And it takes a while to adjust. The net result of that time is I really don't like to travel anymore because I travel too much.
So we're going from 200 years ago, they would take a horse and carriage across the country. It'd take 5 months, and now Christians flying to a foreign country on a jet, talking about a technology that didn't exist 10 years ago. So how did you get into crypto, Robert? What's your because we got your tech story, but everyone has their own different weird story for how they got into blockchain and cryptocurrency and stuff like that.
Well, I could have gotten into crypto much better than I did. I read briefly about Bitcoin very early on.
Yeah.
And my first reaction was, to be blunt, who gives a rat's ass, right? I mean, why should I care? And I ignored it and forgot about it. And then, sorry, of course, if I would have bought, $10,000 worth of Bitcoin back then, I'd be a very happy guy right now. Of course, I didn't. And then a couple of years ago, I was talking to one of my buddies from Carnegie Mellon that I keep in touch with from time to time, and he's like, "Have you heard about this Bitcoin thing?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I heard about it, and why should I care?" And he's like, "Look, I mean, you're a techie. You want to check this out because I think there's something to this."
Yeah.
And and that sort of prompted me to sort of do a 180, go back to Bitcoin, read about it, and then I discovered the whole altcoin thing, which I mean the base technology for all these altcoins is the same, right? They're all basically Bitcoin clones with various features added, subtracted, changed, or whatever, right? But the fact that you had this whole altcoin universe was initially even more fascinating to me than the fact that you had Bitcoin, because that was like sort of a Cambrian explosion moment for me. It's like, wow, what is going on here, right?
Yeah.
So that's when I got into sort of crypto in general, and then because I'm good at writing software and basically web software these days, right? So I helped some groups fix some of their websites and stuff like that, and I met Björn, and so one thing led to another. We kept in touch. We've been trading altcoins, and 5 years later, here we are.
Yeah.
So I got into crypto in a very roundabout and stupid way, but well, that's the way it happened.
Don't worry. I think a lot of people read about it and wrote it off pretty early. Not
So what
not
altcoins
a ton
did
of
you
people, but
like?
some people.
What altcoins, Robert, were you into?
I wasn't really into altcoins in the sense that I was like, yeah, this is the thing. But the thing that fascinated me was that, first of all, you could create an altcoin. I mean, they even, I don't know if it still exists. Back then, they even had like an automated service that could like, create an altcoin for you. And
It's still around. It's still around, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, just the whole concept of, you can create your own coin. Now, whether there's any use to that or not, that's a different question, right? But that was like, it's kind of like the printing press all over. I mean, you had this thing with the web, right? All of a sudden, anybody could publish anything, right? Of course, then, we see what that leads to, and we have lots of pictures of cats on the internet and stuff like that. But, and the same with altcoin, right? Anybody can launch their own currency. Now, is that good or bad? I don't know. I mean, we'll see what that leads to, right? But I mean, it certainly led to a lot of innovation, and that was what was really interesting to me, in the sense, look at what's going on. Because, again, I remember the internet in college. When I was in college, there was no internet as it is now, right? We had FTP and Telnet, and we were happy to have that, basically. And Usenet, it was called back then.
Yep.
And then the internet came along, and the internet first was, I mean, if you look at websites from the late 90s, I mean, they look horrible and they do nothing, and it's a bit of text and, some ugly graphics. And, 20 years later, look at what we have now, right? I mean, here we're talking over Google Hangouts. So that thought sort of was fascinating for me about the altcoin thing, right? I mean, anybody can create their own currency, and the sort of implications for that, both for what it meant to be a currency, but also what it meant for innovating on that level, because and then you start following altcoins, and then you have like these various phases. So then you have the anonymous phase, right? Anonymous transactions, and then you have like anonymous transactions over Tor. And then you have I don't know what else. I mean, I stopped tracking all this stuff a while ago.
Yeah, you can't keep up. There's too much.
No.
So much development all the time. It's hard.
Exactly, and and then eventually you come to Ethereum and Ethereum Classic, right? Which is basically a virtual machine running on top of a blockchain. And
right.
So that's what I find really interesting about that. It's this sort of innovation space that's opened up, right?
Now, you guys were obviously. Sorry, no, go ahead.
No, absolutely. I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, it's kind of like the mobile space opening up, right? This new space opens up, and all of a sudden, a couple of years later, you have, I don't know, 10 million mobile applications, right? Similar to that in the altcoin world, and what that does to finance, and what does it mean to be a currency, and what can a currency do, and then again, like I said, that sort of leads to Ethereum, right? Which is, programmable money, basically.
So Ethereum drew your attention, and now you guys have focused your attention on, building some platforms. And so I know I've spoken to you guys. I've spoken to Bjorn about the Janus team, and I think the listeners would be interested in knowing a little bit more about the Janus team and what you guys are currently working on, and a little bit about ETC Bets.
Absolutely. So the Janus team is myself, who you just heard me ramble about myself, and Björn and Luis. And I met Björn in the altcoin world a few years ago, and Björn is, as far as I'm concerned, an absolutely brilliant marketing guy, and not marketing in sort of the classical sense, we'll get magazine ads and stuff like that, but sort of like in a viral sense, sort of online. Mm-hmm. He comes up with ideas that I would never have, and I think most people would never have. And he's really good at that. And I realized that, after talking to him and seeing some of his work, and he realized that I was, a really solid developer. So at some point, he came to me, look, let's do something together, right? And that led to us creating Better Bets. And then we were like, okay, so Better Bets, we have that now. So what do we do next? And
which Better Bets
so,
is fantastic, by the way.
oh, thank you. It's well, it will be even more fantastic once we upgrade it to the new code base. Yeah, so and then we said, okay, so let's do something together, and let's do something, that's maybe with a bigger focus. And so we had the idea of this. Look, let's use cryptocurrencies to, sort of bootstrap a business, get some investment, and reward the investors through some of the functions that cryptocurrencies offer you, right? And but I said, look, but let's step outside of crypto, because if you're in crypto, it's easy to think that crypto is this huge, wonderful space, but in reality, it's tiny, right, compared to the rest of the world.
Yeah, I always say that all the time. It's really tiny. Just started, barely.
Yeah, and so that also means, right? So if you have a service, and I don't know, take something successful, Shapeshift, right? Poloniex, right? You have, I don't know, 10,000 customers, 20,000, I don't know, right? But I mean, it's probably in that order of magnitude, right?
Yeah.
Well, look at the other extreme, Facebook, which is like approaching 2 billion users, right? So there's a huge gap in market size between crypto and the real world, right? And so before coming into crypto, I've been in the real world, and I've dealt with websites that get tens of millions of hits and users a year, right? So I was like, well, let's do something that bridges that. And Björn's like, I like the idea. We can make it work. So that's sort of where Janus comes in, so what we want to do is basically use crypto as an enabler to build services and build sites, and bootstrap some ideas which target mainstream, but sort of sneakily sort of use crypto under the hood, maybe even.
Yeah. They say that's the future, where people are using crypto or blockchain and they don't even know it. That's when it's really developed.
Exactly. I mean, that you can use it for some feature that you offer to your customers, and they don't even have to know it's crypto, right? They don't even have to, I mean, the simplest example is, right? Say you have a website and you do something, I don't know, loyalty points or whatever you want to call them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can to your customers call it loyalty points, but how cool would it be if a year down the line, you have, I don't know, a functioning site and a reasonable customer base, and you can say, oh, by the way, for each loyalty point, you get one, I don't know, loyalty coin or whatever you want to call it at that point in time. And you can actually sell them and trade them. And all of a sudden you've introduced this whole group of people to crypto who would have probably never heard of it otherwise. And, and expanded the crypto space by doing so, but actually built a real business that is independent of crypto.
Yeah, right? It'd be pretty wild if people had loyalty points that went up times 50 after a couple of years.
Yeah.
Well,
or something weird like that,
Then there would be people like me who ignored Bitcoin and sold their loyalty points too early and then would kick themselves. But so the focus of the Janus project really is to we got some investment through selling the Janus token, and so we're using that money to basically pay for our development time, and we're going to be launching some businesses and websites.
Yeah.
And
okay, well, now that sounds interesting. Yes. So you decided to start a business, and instead of getting venture capital funding for your software team, so you're saying you made an altcoin to get funding? Did I understand correctly?
Well, technically it's a next token, but yeah, I mean it's basically an altcoin. I mean, but yeah, it's a next token. We chose next because it allows for. First of all, I think next is a really cool project and coin, and it's technologically quite advanced, but it allows for easy distribution of dividends.
Okay, now, but did you how did you market it, or did you already have people that wanted to invest already, and you just told them to?
Well, we first tried to do an ICO, and we abandoned that because first of all we chose bad timing. I think we were sort of year end, which is when everybody's sort of tired of ICOs, I think. And second of all, I think we underestimated the amount of sort of pre PR that has to go into an ICO and blah 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 and all sorts of things. So that didn't work out as we hoped.
Yeah.
But we had a relatively loyal, call it a small but loyal fan base from Better Bets, because through Better Bets we did an altcoin on Better Bets which we sold, and some people got some profit sharing from that. So we had some people who knew us and actually sort of believed in sort of us as a team, and that we weren't gonna just take their money and disappear basically.
Community is really important.
Absolutely, and so that helped, and that sort of got the ball rolling, and then after a while, we haven't launched any major businesses yet. We're in development on them, but the word kind of started spreading, and we were hitting certain milestones and doing what we promised to do, and then we actually sort of sold pretty much all the tokens that we wanted to sell, which means that we don't have 5,000 BTC or anything like that, but we have enough to keep us going for a while.
Wow.
And so this is where we are. So the third guy on the team is Luis, who's been a community manager on Better Bets, and so that's the three of us, and so I do the dev work, Björn does the marketing work, Luis does some of the marketing work, community work, and stuff like that. And I'm a strong believer in sort of small and focused teams. I've seen too many examples of large teams just sort of getting lost in, like, I don't know where, but like hyperspace or something. So I like to keep it lean. I do all the dev work at this point in time. Eventually, we'll probably have to hire some people, but for now, it's okay.
Right. Now, what are your impressions or your team's impressions of ETC Bets so far? How's everything been going with that? How's the response from community and users and stuff like that?
And also, why did you choose ETC? That would be an interesting question.
Yes. So why did we choose ETC? Because we like the sort of immutability aspect. Really, I think that's really central to what a currency. Of course, a currency doesn't have to be, as we see from our central banks who print money as they wish. But we really like that aspect, and we think long term that's going to be a great asset to have as a project ideology, if you want, right? And
we agree. So
yeah, and Björn started talking to some of the ETC people, and he actually did this behind my back at first. Because I was busy with other stuff, and he talks to people all the time, so nothing special about that. But then one day he came to me, look, we really should look at doing something with ETC, because the coin sort of really nicely aligns with sort of what we want to do, and they have a great team, and the team is really receptive to our ideas, and they want they want to work with us and help us where possible, and that's sort of how that got started. And once that happened, I was like, Björn, if you think that's what we should do, that's what we're going to do, right? Because that aspect of the business, I leave to Björn. I mean, we talk about sort of big strategic things we do, but if Björn manages to convince me, and he did so easily, then then I'm like, cool, let's do it. So we took, we so that finally gave us a motive to get to working on the Better Bets code again, which has been sort of languished because we've been busy with other stuff. So we went on a mad development spree and ripped out all the, or 90% of the AJAX calls and replaced them with WebSockets. And that's what ETC Bets is now. And we added another game, and the result has been a dramatic improvement in performance and a dramatic reduction in server load. And so from a technical side, we're really happy. We've processed like 3 million bets in 3 days.
Holy crap.
Now, just for the people that are listening, so help me out, Robert. So AJAX is a way for a browser to continue to talk with the server in the background. And so people use that to make responsive websites. And so WebSockets was an improved standard for that, what they call asynchronous communication, right?
Sort of, yes. The problem with AJAX is that it basically opens a new connection every time you do, you send a command to the server. Mm-hmm. So that's slow, right? And with WebSockets, you have a persistent connection, which just is kept open. You can just send commands and data, whatever you want to send through it. Mm-hmm. So to give you so that's one side. The other side is because of the way the web works, right? If you send an AJAX request, that's basically that's initializing a new web request, which means that your entire state has to be built again on the server. So which means you have to sort of, select the user, see what their session's like, select data, send something, and do something, send something back. And with WebSockets, you can move to sort of application server concept, right? You have a continually running WebSocket server who can keep state. So, for example, the most basic example, your user object is then in memory. And you can just update the state as needed. You don't have to select it from the database again. Mm-hmm. And so
that great technical question from Christian, and then my question is so non-technical, which is 3 million bets in 2 days. That's insane.
Actually, it's really cool actually, because we used to top out at about on Better Bets on about 40, 50 bets a second.
Right.
And literally at that point, our database and server was struggling.
Yeah.
And now we're having on top, so far the best we've had, I think, is about 80 bets a second, and our CPU load is like 4%. I mean, it's totally ridiculous.
All that cool technical stuff you guys were just talking about, that's what makes those 3 million bets possible, correct?
Yes, and it's actually quite cool. If you go to ETC Bets, so ETC Bets launched with 2 games. One is the sort of standard sort of dice, which you all know from a million crypto betting sites.
Yeah.
And the other one is which we call Parabolic, which is basically Bust a Bit, which we've rewritten to run on PHP rather than Node.js, because that's where my area of expertise lies, right? Right. I wanted a piece of source code I could actually control rather than just run blindly. If you go on ETC Bets and you go on Dice, and it's actually pretty cool. You just see the bets zipping by in real time, and it's really cool to watch. And for me as a dev, I'm really happy to see how that worked out, because while we're doing whatever 60, 70 bets a second, I look on the server and CPU load is close to nothing, right? It's absolutely cool.
Now, can you I'm not sure that everybody knows about these gambling dice games. Can you just kind of describe that a little bit more, as if the audience doesn't know anything about that? How does that work? Do you bet on what the outcome of the roll of the dice is, or what?
Well, basically, yes. I mean, it's you bet on a number between 0 and 100. And depending on what you bet, that determines your payout, right? So if you bet on say, smaller than 50, right, then you have a 50% chance of winning, which means your payout is 2.
Okay.
And if you bet on, say, smaller than 10, You have a 10% chance of winning. Your payout is 10, right? 10 times whatever you wager.
Okay.
And the big thing about the crypto betting is, which is actually very cool, is that first of all, you typically have a low house edge. You have a house edge of about 1%, which compared to real gambling, sort of fiat gambling sites, I mean, they would hate that house edge. Those guys work with like 30-40% house edge.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that it's provably fair, right? So the way it's implemented is such that you have a client seed, which you can control if you want, but typically it's randomly generated on the client, so it's under the user's control. And the way the bet outcome is determined is in such a way that you can verify that you haven't been cheated, and that the bet outcome is as it was predetermined by the mathematics of it, rather than by someone wanting you to lose.
Okay, wait, whoa, time out. Okay, so I'm not a gambling expert. Carlo knows more about that than I do. But if the house is completely predictable, then and the open source, the code is open on the blockchain, then why doesn't everybody know the future? You see what I'm saying? Where do you introduce the randomness for the house?
Well, the random. It's not that the house is predictable, in the sense that you can tell one roll ahead what the next roll is going to be, but it's provable, and it's provable that the actual outcome of a certain roll was as determined by the previously generated server hash and your client seed, right, and a server secret. So it's not that it's not predetermined, because it's never predetermined, because you don't know, as the house, you don't know the client seed, right? The client seed can be anything.
Oh, you just answered my question. So you use the randomness. Yeah. The client seed is the randomness. You use that randomness to get the house randomness.
There's a client randomness and there's a server randomness, and together they generate the seed. But it's together with all that information.
Sounds pretty random.
Yeah.
Right. Now, I don't want to tell you how to run your business, but what you said sounds a little bit like roulette and craps, which I know hardly anything about. But I would imagine if you made literally a simulation of roulette and craps, I assume that would attract more people. So is that in the works?
Yeah. By the way, I'm not saying that you should or shouldn't do it, but if there was a VR crypto roulette, I probably wouldn't have any more Bitcoin left. So please, no one make that.
I will contact you.
I only played. Don't send me any info about it. I don't want to know about it. Just make it, but don't tell me about it. Because I really, it's not like I've played a whole ton of craps, but I was in Vegas one time and played a little bit. It was pretty fun.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. Gambling is sort of a weird thing, right? I mean, if you approach gambling the way I approach it, which is, I'll do it every once in a while, and I don't really. I mean, it's great if you win. If you lose, tough luck, right? Set yourself a budget, and if you lose that, you're done. Then it's great fun. I think the problem is with gambling is that it can really mess up some people's lives.
Yeah.
I'm
not a big gambler at all. I actually, when I went there, I didn't even understand how craps worked. So me and the person that I was there with, we were watching the craps going, and I was just trying to figure out the game while everybody was like, winning money. And then by the time we rolled and understood the game, we rolled, lost, and then everybody walked away. That's pretty. That was my first Vegas craps moment, and then I played a couple more times. And that was it. But anyway.
Yeah. So the crypto gambling space is probably about as fair as you can get in terms of gambling.
Yeah.
It's provably fair. The house edge is low. And so, it's still gambling with all its potential issues attached. But it's, I think, and especially the good thing with crypto gambling is, right, you can bet ridiculously low amounts, right?
Right.
So our minimum bet on ETC bets is 0.00001 ETC, which is, I don't even know what that is. I mean, it's in terms of, Yeah, in terms of real money, it's like, I don't know, 1/100th of a cent or something like that, right? So I mean,
Right.
you can have, quote unquote fun for, pretty much close to no money. Now, if you want to, wager more, that is your prerogative. But I think this is about as fair of a gambling environment as you can get. Now, the other game that we put on is Parabolic, which is basically Bust a Bit rewritten. I don't know if you guys know Bust a Bit.
Yeah, I know Bust a Bit.
That's actually a really interesting game in the sense that it's deceptively simple and really really cool and really I mean that has a certain charm to it. So we got that, and we're thinking
Now,
of adding some.
Bust a Bit. Now, the only thing I really know about Bust a Bit, well, I say no, but I really should say I know of it, because I think there was like a video of someone playing it and winning a lot. It was like posted on Reddit or something like that. But if you could tell us a little bit more about Bust a Bit, and maybe for the people listening, kind of what's going on with that.
Okay, well, so Bust a Bit, or Parabolic as we call it.
Yes, Parabolic, right?
It is so the server determines a random number. Based on that random number, it determines how high a certain growth function will grow to, and then on your screen you see like this real-time graph growing, towards that number. And you can set like an auto cash out point. So you sort of if it reaches say 2.3, it cashes you out automatically, or you can cash out by pressing a button. And the fun and skill is to sort of watch that thing happen in real time, and try to be smart enough to cash out on time.
That's weird.
So it sounds like you're simulating day trading or technical investing, I guess.
Yeah, I mean I mean just give us a day or two to fix some launch bugs and come over and just even if you don't play, just look at it. It's actually quite fun.
Yeah, I saw the video. It looks pretty weird. It looks like a wave that's rising. Is that the one?
Yeah.
You see it? Yeah, and then people click or something. It's strange.
Now, wait, I have to
It's
ask
strange.
you, as a
No,
developer.
it's strangely interesting.
I'm dying to ask you a question, Robert. So as a developer, every time you make a new game or add a new feature, do you just like lose sleep thinking about the security and protecting yourself from hackers losing all your funds?
Well, not every time I make a new game, but every time I make a new site, yes.
Okay.
The games are relatively easy. I mean, my biggest fear is that somebody figures out a flaw on our server and runs off with our etc. I would be very unhappy if that happened. But you sort of know as a participant in that space that you have a target painted on your forehead, basically. And there'll be. I mean, if I look at my server logs, it's quite funny, that from the amount of random sort of potentially dangerous commands that are sent to our server are totally ridiculous.
Oh wow. Okay, so people know about you and they're already trying. Oh boy. Okay.
Oh, they've been trying better bets for the past, I don't know, 2 years basically.
Okay.
It's constant.
Good job on security, by the way.
Well, thank you. I mean,
It's not easy. It's not easy.
No, and you really have to sort of code defensively,
Yes.
and that's a certain mindset you sort of have to bring yourself to. But you simply cannot do any shortcuts. I mean, we had one on better bets. We had one attack which succeeded in and cost us 7 BTC. Luckily, BTC was at like 200 something bucks back then. But we had one attack which succeeded, and that was literally like the one place in the code where I had been sloppy, and they somehow figured it out by doing sort of automated penetration testing.
That's unbelievable.
And yeah, so
Wait,
I mean, it's
actually, yeah, that's interesting. I just thought of a positive for you from that incident. So if you have all these people that are desperately trying to find a vulnerability, so you could think of it as that you basically you paid $1,500 to have your code audited.
Yeah.
yes, that is true.
Pretty much. So this might get a little bit techie for anyone listening out there that's not techie, but I got to ask, what was the vulnerability, if you don't mind me asking? If you don't want to discuss it, that's reasonable, but.
Oh, no, it's perfectly fine to discuss it. The vulnerability was the one spot where I had been lazy or sort of in a rush and said, oh, I'm not going to use a prepared SQL statement here, but I'll just throw in the parameter right away into the SQL statement. And they found it, and that was a way to bypass, to sort of do a SQL injection attack. And bypass our filters, and that was it.
Oh man.
Okay, whoa! What happens when you hire 10 developers, and how are you going to make sure that each, or 100 developers, each one of those developers never gets lazy, even for 5 minutes before they submit code?
Well, I mean, the one thing you have to do is, and this literally, I mean, this is with version 2 of the Better Bets code. Basically, from then on, we've been doing that, is to embed things like that in the architecture, right? So that a lot of the stuff that you had to do manually, now you do automatic, and you really can't screw it up.
Okay.
The thing with public-facing websites is you have to, you simply have to make sure that these things are done right. I mean, if you have a public-facing website, which is a news website, I mean, you don't want to get hacked, of course, but if you do, nothing horrible happens, right?
Right.
Well, news
is much different than money. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you kind of run a crypto wallet and they if they penetrate you and run off with it, then that's bad news. So yeah, you simply have to be careful, and that's why I at this point do all the dev work, because I want to make sure it's done right. That's not to say I never make any mistakes, but I've been burned a few times, and I know what to be careful about.
Yeah, that's how you learn, right? Making mistakes, even sadly to say, getting hacked. That right? That's how you learn. Okay.
Well, I hope no one collects any more bounties from you. I don't think they will. I know you got it covered.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure I do, but this is an evolving space. You never know. But I'm doing my best.
Do you guys use any, or not do you, but is it a common thing for a lot of these people in the Bitcoin or crypto betting site communities to use like code auditors, like certain code auditing companies and stuff like that? Or are they not even caught up to the technology of what's going on, and they probably wouldn't even know what to look for as much as you do?
Well, I mean, there's two things here, right? One is the security of your website, which, if you've been doing this for a while, you know what to look for and how to deal with that. And the other one is the correctness of your mathematical model, right? Which powers your bets. Because if that's wrong, then your website, doesn't have to get hacked for you to lose tons of money. So those are the two things, right? So for something like DICE, I mean, the math is pretty basic, right? And easily checked. And the websites, you can run audit, you can run automatic penetration testing tools and stuff like that. I think the basic thing is really to code defensively. I mean, and simply, that has to be your mindset, and you have to check every input. You cannot trust any user input. You really have to be kind of paranoid when you write code for this stuff.
Mm-hmm. So, with all this experience that you guys have built up from Better Bets and now ETC Bets, which it's insane, 3 million bets in such a short amount of time, which is awesome. What's in store for the future of you guys, for work or business, or just things in general? What's in store for you guys?
Okay, so in store is the expansion of the Janus project into the real world. And by that I mean that we have very specific plans for 2 or 3 websites that we want to launch this year. Okay. We've commenced development on one of them. One of them is going to be sort of very broad sort of news-based initiative. Another one is going to be a sort of Forex community initiative. Mm-hmm. And a third one is going to be probably, although we're discussing some options there, something targeting sort of the real estate market, which is a very interesting market in itself. So basically, the plan now is to spend a few days, spend a week to get, all the remaining bugs from ETC bets ironed out, because as we transitioned all of the code from Ajax to WebSockets, some things sort of fell under the table. Nothing major, just a few things which need to be ironed out. And then really do development for the sort of the real world businesses, and with probably some crypto stuff thrown in, as a sort of, like I said, sort of sneak it into your audience so they don't even know it's crypto, but they use it.
Yep, that's the key.
And
maybe in the future people will know they're using crypto, but that's a good mid to short to midterm strategy, is where they don't even know they're using it. Yeah.
And again, if you target the real world, then you don't have to have a 30%, 20%, 10% market penetration in order to be successful, right? I mean, if you have 7 billion people on the planet, right? If you get a website with a couple of million users who actually use it and pay for the service in some way, you're good, right? But in terms of like percentage of people using it, it's tiny, right? You can't do that in crypto, right? In crypto, you have to get really a substantial number of the crypto people involved in your site for it to be sort of a financial success. So that's sort of what we're going to be focusing on: grow the real world business, and some of it is going to be sort of very very typical Web 2.0, and some of it is going to be, I think, more traditional, software stuff, like, the realty stuff, for example. I mean, real estate is a really interesting market in the sense that, everybody uses it. Everybody, owns or rents a house or an apartment. It's by definition geographically separated, right? Because if you're looking for an apartment in New York, you don't care what happens in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And a lot of these real estate, sort of companies are sort of running on software that makes you cringe. And I know this because I have some friends who are realtors.
They're dying. They're dying for blockchain. They are.
I'm not even sure if they're dying for blockchain. They're just dying for modern software that actually works.
Yeah. Right.
And I've actually done some work in the realty space before, so I sort of know what these guys want, what they need, and how to build it. So that could be one push, and I think the other pushes we're gonna do are gonna be more sort of like Web 2.0 type stuff, right? With people, signing up for a service and making use of that.
So if you needed more funds for any of these future businesses, would you try to have an altcoin, a new altcoins to raise funds? I'm just curious. I'm still intrigued by the way you raised funds for the Janet's team.
I don't know, because this is really Björn's domain, right?
I mean, okay.
Yeah, he knows. I mean, he knows
Right.
more about the sort of Bitcoin altcoin space than I do. And I trust his judgment on that. He's good with that.
Okay.
Having said that, I think we may come to the market, to the crypto market, maybe for another project that, where we say, okay, we're going to need more funding for that. But over time, as we move along and sort of prove that we actually sort of deliver on our promises, and that we're a team that can be trusted, hopefully that becomes easier, right?
Yeah,
I mean, I would much rather deal with, let's say, 5 or 10 large investors into a project, right? Than having to deal with the general crypto public, where the second you're 10 minutes late on some deadline, right? Everybody, you get these scam accusations and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's crazy. It's understandable. I mean, myself and Björn were caught in the summer of scams. I believe it was 2014 or 2013. I don't even remember. So it's understandable. But I don't want to deal with all those people, sort of accusing me of, robbing them and their grandma, which, that's not the business I'm in. I'm just trying to build cool stuff, basically, and we're trying to build cool stuff and make a success out of that. Now, can I promise success? No, I can't. No company in the world can, right? But I can promise that we're not gonna steal your funds, run away with them, or do anything else that is sort of shady, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll work damn hard trying to make it a success, and that's
No,
that's all I can
you
promise.
guys have a excellent track record of in the crypto community with Better Bets and now ETC Bets and a bunch of projects. You've been a developer for so long.
Well, maybe
yeah.
we'll have to have you back on the show when you have another application that you're
Oh,
launching.
for sure, for
that
sure.
everyone's-
I'd be happy to come back.
So I was going to say, so another question that we like to ask some of our guests is, we kind of got a little bit of the past, the present, and a little bit of the near to midterm future. But what's some weird, it can be way off the wall use cases that you see for blockchain? Give us your blockchain 2050, 2050 future. What does it look like in 50 years or 100 years? What are some weird things you see blockchain being used for?
Everything.
Yeah.
Literally everything. But I think the literally the most interesting development in that space has been Ethereum Classic, and the possibilities, that entire model brings with itself, right? I think that's the kind of deal where at this point we don't even understand what the possibilities are.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the web in the late 90s. Yeah, you can do a web page and that has maybe a few pictures in it and that's it. And and your first reaction would be, great, what does this get me? And look 20 years later where we are, right? And
Right,
I think
big businesses were treating it like a flyer or something. They didn't even know what to do with it.
Yeah, but even and even myself as a developer, I'm like, yeah, this, who cares, right? Well, 20 years later, everything runs on that, right? So I think that's very much the same sort of situation with smart contracts, programmable money, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's too early to tell what that will lead to. But I'm convinced it's it's the first step in the evolution of that entire technology space, which is going to lead to lots and lots of interesting things.
Yeah.
Now, in all honesty, right, is Ethereum or Ethereum Classic, the technology that's going to make it? I think it has a good shot. I hope so, but who knows? It's too early to tell, right?
Yeah, it's like in the mid to late 90s. How do you tell what's Amazon, what's Google? It's hard to pick. It's hard to pick out of the bunch. I agree, but yeah, you definitely have your blue chips and the projects that have more development and more going on than others, for sure.
Well, I have
Absolutely,
a question.
but I think please.
Well, would you agree with this though? So, whether it is or isn't Ethereum Classic or Ethereum, it probably has to be something similar. It has to be a world computer with a general purpose Turing complete smart contract language. And the reason I say that was you started at the beginning of the show, you talked about how everybody could make an altcoin and fork the Bitcoin source code, but you don't have any miners supporting your altcoin. And so something like an Ethereum Classic, right, solves that problem if everybody runs on the same blockchain. So wouldn't you agree that the future is probably going to belong to general purpose blockchain systems?
I absolutely agree with you there. The question is which one, right?
And
ETC.
Of course, but realistically speaking,
I have. In case you wanted to know the answer, I actually do have the answer, and
the
answer is yes. The answer is ETC.
And I think that what a lot of crypto people forget is that, right? I mean, I think the whole sort of blockchain, call it environment, right, and ETC and Bitcoin and stuff like this, that's challenging some very established, powerful interests, right?
Yeah.
And those interests are not going to relinquish control without a fight. Now, sort of the sort of Bitcoin liberalists might say, well, who cares? They can't control it. Well, no, they can't. But I mean, let's take a really extreme look, right? Um, okay, you can't control it, but you get a 5-year jail sentence for paying in Bitcoin, right?
Mhm.
So I'm not saying that's going to happen, and I really hope it doesn't. But all I'm saying is, the sort of interests that are being challenged by this technology are well entrenched, well connected, and they're not going to give up without a fight. So we have some interesting times ahead, I think.
So weird. It really is. All right. So we talked about crypto, past, present, and future. Now to on to some more normal conversation. So and what I shout out to my older sister Cheryl for this one. She always wants me to ask this for the audience to get to know the people that are on the show. What books are you reading? Any shows you're watching, or are you just in code developing 24/7?
Um, well, mostly for the past year or two. Well, so what people may not know is, what people probably don't know is, I own a company. And before everybody thinks, I'm like the second Microsoft, I'm not. It's a one-person company, but so I have customer projects to do, which I've sort of shoved to the side for now and sort of ignored. But eventually, I have to do some, because otherwise, the tax office is going to say, "Look, your revenue is dangerously low, and we don't think you're a company anymore." So I'm really busy with sort of for the past couple of months. It's really been sort of Janus and everything around that. So, but what am I reading? I like to read, basically in my so generous spare time. Um, I like to read either sort of science fiction stuff, or sort of, yeah, I enjoy history and political science and stuff like that. So
Yeah,
that's
histories are already weird enough. I agree.
yeah.
Yeah, I like
I mean,
reading.
basically any weird story that you can you can think of has probably been done by humanity. So
Pretty much.
um,
So
that
shows, no time for shows. I'm guessing, right? Not really me either. I gotta be honest.
I haven't watched TV in quite a while.
Yeah.
I enjoy sort of when to get development done, I put on my headphones, put on music and code basically, and that's
I
that's
figured.
it.
I told her that this is the answer I'm going to get from pretty much everyone I have on my show, but she doesn't want to listen. So I got to ask. I love her so.
I mean, I like I actually sometimes when I have time free, I sort of download some stuff and binge watch it. So I enjoy stuff like House of Cards and stuff like that. I don't enjoy sort of silly sitcoms anymore. So
Yeah, my one show is Game of Thrones. That's it. Once that's finished,
yes, Game of Thrones.
Yeah, that's about it.
Breaking Bad was cool.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. But
No, I'm with you
I
though.
don't get a lot of.
I did the same thing pretty much with Breaking Bad. I didn't really follow it at all, and then I did the had a day binge watch, three seasons to catch up thing.
Yeah, and I mean during the regular day, I mean I have a family. I have a daughter that's 4.5 years old. So between juggling all of that, TV time is close to zero.
Yep, I can imagine.
Robert, I just want to make sure, did we cover everything? Did you say everything you wanted to say about ETC Bets and the Janus team? Wanted to give you a chance
okay. So to summarize, I mean, ETC Bets is basically, as Björn put it, our icebreaker to the ETC community, in the sense that they invested some development time and some resources to bring what I think is genuinely a well done site and project, and and sort of introduce ourselves to the ETC people. We hope that people are gonna like the site and use it. In all honesty, do we think we're gonna make a ton of money of it? No, but that's not really the point. The point is to sort of get on a good working relationship with the ETC people, establish trust, and sort of have a base from which we can move forward, and help each other grow businesses around ETC, grow ETC as a coin, and sort of help the entire project space basically. And in terms of Janus, well, we've done some initial things. We've we've delivered on some initial promises, and we're working hard on delivering on the rest, right? And like I said before, I cannot promise success. I wish I could, but I can promise you that we'll give it our utmost best to make it a success. And the one thing I need to say about Janus is this: we haven't, and from the beginning we've said this: we haven't, we didn't pick one thing to do. We said we're going to do this and that's it. No, we've picked a number of things, and the reason is simply statistics, right? Because at the end of the day, if a product catches on or not, it's really hard to predict, right? Sometimes the weirdest things catch on, and sometimes things that everybody thinks are great don't catch on. So we're intentionally targeting a number of different areas, right? And with the understanding that not all of them are going to be a success, but if one or two are a reasonable success, and reasonable being getting some sort of market traction in mainstream space, then that's going to make all of our investors very happy, including ourselves. That's really all it takes, right? And if in the course of doing that we produce 3 or 4 projects which are not the success we hope for, so be it. But if as long as the end result is positive for everyone involved, that's the basic goal.
Good.
Yeah, I think you guys are really doing a great job of building trust within the community with this project, and we're looking forward to everything you guys have. So is there anything else you'd like for us to touch upon, or I think we pretty much covered all the bases.
I think so. I don't have anything right now. I'll just say thank you for having me and having us. And in the future, if we launch something interesting, I'll be very happy to return and talk about that and give you some updated insights to what we've been up to.
Yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate the time you took to come on the show and tell everybody about ETC Bets and Janus team, and just talk about tech and crypto in general. So again, I'd like to thank IOHK for making this all possible. I'd like to thank the ETC dev team for keeping everything going, and the Grothendieck team from IOHK for working on the new Scala client. Also, I'd like to thank everyone from the ETC community, and it's been a great, great, crazy couple of months we've got going here. So thank you for coming on with us, Rob and Christian. Thanks again, and everybody who's listening out there. We appreciate you tuning in, and we're going to have another show next Friday. Take care.
Excellent. Thank you, guys.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
If you are passionate about anything related to Ethereum Classic and you have something to say, we'd love to discuss that with you on the show. We're always looking for interesting guests, so